So you feel alone, you don't want to tell anybody, but you are stuck, and then you want people to, and then you realize that a problem carried with more than one people is a less heavy problem.
What starts as a dream of building your family quickly becomes an entire ecosystem of decisions. There are doctors, agencies, lawyers, clinics, and countless moving pieces. And sometimes you don't even know what questions you should be asking. That's why so many people turn to IVF Daddies. Through their podcast, educational resources, and growing community, Richard and Julio have helped thousands of intended parents better understand the family building journey. Drawing from personal experience and years of helping intended parents, they've become trusted guides for families pursuing IVF, surrogacy, and egg donation, including across international borders.
You are the master of your own destiny. You have to know what's going on. You have to take control of understanding where things are. It's your family.
Today, they're sharing what they've learned about finding trusted guidance, building the right support system, and why community may be the most important resource you have on this journey. Enjoy. I feel like one of the things that really stands out about IVF Daddies is that your content does kind of feel like less traditional, quote unquote, fertility content. And it really is just honest guidance through a very complicated process. Was that the intention from the beginning?
Great question. The intention, it's really interesting looking back, because we were talking about this earlier today. We're coming up to our 100th episode of the podcast, and that kind of takes you back to
congratulations.
Thank you. I know, it's kind of crazy. I'm like, who listens? I'm like, 100, like, really? People want to listen? Like, they still listen. But what was really interesting is we started, the first few episodes really were just me talking about my book to just kind of get used to being in front of the camera and doing the things. But what's really interesting is actually the podcast, what we do is exactly how I talk to my patients when we're going through this, the talking to anybody about IVF or surrogacy, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a dad who's been through this process, who's helped hundreds of people to understand and navigate. And I really do get when they sit there and go, what the hell are you talking about?
And also for my part, I was just like getting in the house, and he was working from home, and then the kids were around, and I was just like, a topic will come up, and I was just like, what do they know? What do they don't know? What is taboo? What should I? And I was like, look over there, and I would just run.
So it'd be like, sperm, oh no, run.
or it would be like, did you know how babies are born? It's like, yeah, they come from a lab.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. So my children have been listening to me doing this year in, year out, day in, day out, evening, like it's generally the evenings when they're back from school. And they're now 13. They've done sexual reproduction. They've done, like all of that at school. And they aced the test because they know all about sperm, eggs, vaginas. They know the whole thing. Apart from how babies were made. They were like, wait, what? The sperm is injected into the egg. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Duh.
Like, Papa, did you know that sex can also make babies?
And we were like,
did you know?
I'm like, yeah.
So for me, it was more like, let me just educate myself to be a better boyfriend and a better guardian for the kids. Because to me, it was so foreign to understand how normalized does he have it in the family. And also when he's talking, we're meeting people together, I know how to understand a lot better. And then I realized that is not easy. It's like there's the marketing aspect of it that sells it to you very linear. You do this, and then you do this, and then, but it's like this, and then you go back here, and then there's nothing happening, and that's okay. And then you have to wait. And then when you wait, you go back, and then you go to the doctor, and then the agency, and then you lose a year.
Yeah. I was actually talking to somebody today, and they were like, what comes next? And I was like, well, great question, because you've frozen your sperm, but you haven't chosen your egg donor, and you haven't done your genetics, but you have done your site. Like, and I could see his brain just like starting to frazzle. I was like, I'll put it in an email for you, just so you understand. Because the problem is, we started talking a year and a half ago. So a year and a half ago, I laid out everything. It's all nicely done. In an email, he gets step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But between then and
Sure.
now, there's been a million different things happening and you forget, right? So what was really good was I was like, I'm going to reference back to the email. We're going to go back step. These are the steps. This is literally what you have to do so that you know what's coming next. Because one of the biggest challenges is you go A, B, D, E, F, G, H, I, and then someone's like, what about C? And they're like, but nobody reminded me or nobody told me. And you're now further down the line than potentially you should be. So it's, I think that's why the podcast, come back to your question. That's why the podcast, we do it in a really, I want to say jovial way, because I'm much more like, I know the topic. I'm not a doctor, but I've helped lots of people go through. And
Sure.
And Julio is very much of the, what the hell are you saying?
Yeah, I'm like, when you start sounding like an insider, I just go like,
He zones out. And
like
he literally does this. Is like,
But I love that so much because I think, I mean, being in this industry for a period of time, you really, I think you do forget, you know, how I call it the alphabet soup of IVF, and you're just making these references and using these words and kind of just saying these topics. And you do forget how, you know, to your point, Julio, like, I don't know what you're talking about. You just use the word R or the phrase like RE and, you know, like 10 days DPT or, you know, whatever it is. And no one, the average person doesn't know what that means.
it's like you need a glossary to go, hold on for a sec. Oh, right. Okay.
And not only that, it's just like Richard's job is the international market to California to have like the gold standard for surrogacy, right? So when you are not American and let alone, or you're not, if your first language is not English, then you're like not only adapting to the language, but also medical terms like aneuploid, attrition, and AMH, like all of these things, you're like, what is that? Like, we don't use that every day.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, you hit on something that I would really love to just kind of dive into a little bit. Richard, you are, I mean, you do use the phrase, you know, that the United States is the gold standard of surrogacy. And so you do see you were in the UK whenever you started building your family, you chose to do surrogacy in the US. Why is it that one, you say that it's the gold standard, and what are some of the reasons that you do have international families going outside of their own countries to build their families, particularly the LGBTQ families?
So I think it's the gold standard very simply because you know that everything is being done legally, it's being done ethically, and it's being done in a way that people understand what is going on. What do I mean by that? That means that when I'm starting this process, I had my own lawyer. My lawyer explained to me exactly from a legal standpoint, contract, what they mean, what parental recognition looks like.
Yeah.
My surrogate had her own lawyer. My egg donor had her own lawyer. So we were all independently legally represented. And I think that's so important. And not only that, they got to choose their lawyers. It's not like the agency said, right, here is a lawyer for you, because that is a conflict right there, right? So they got to choose their lawyers, feel comfortable with them, and were legally represented. Two, they had a say. My surrogate had a say in how the process was working. She wasn't dictated. Yeah. She was part of the entire process. Same thing with the egg donor. And I think that, to me, when somebody is fully informed, fully empowered, legally protected, that just gives me the entire, like, this is the gold standard. Plus, because they're signing a contract, because the child is being born in the States, and you can, in certain states, get a pre-birth judgment, which means that the second the child is born, it's yours, right? Everybody knows what's happening. That child is born and it's yours. Even in England, right, which again is a great country, you can do surrogacy here. The difference is that the person who gives birth to a child is the legal mother, and that has to be rescinded by the court.
Even if she is not the
genetic
biological mother.
Correct. Correct. And if she's married, her spouse is the other legal parent. So that provides like protection. Does it really? No, I don't think it does. I go through this process. A surrogate has my genetic child and she can keep the baby. And again, we're always talking about the 0.1% of times that it happens, but this is why
Of
people
course.
ask me, like, would you do the UK versus the US? If money were no object, everybody would be going to the United States. The challenge, and this is one of the biggest problems we're seeing at the moment, is that it's expensive. And therefore, when money comes into it, people have a trade-off. They're going to trade certain protections, legal protections, for cost. And what we're seeing is that for those people outside of the United States, they are coming to the US because they want that protection. Because, for example, you cannot do surrogacy in certain countries. It's illegal.
Right.
And so if you live in those countries, you can't do it at home, but the law does not apply outside. There are countries where it does. So, for example, in China, you're technically not allowed to do surrogacy anywhere in the world. Hong Kong, same thing. But, for example, in Spain, where it's illegal to do surrogacy in Spain, you can be Spanish and go abroad to do surrogacy and then bring your child home and be recognized as a parent. There is a long legal process when you get home. But, for example, if you go to the States, you have birth certificates with your name on it. Your child, for at least for the time being, born in America, has an American passport. They can travel. So the US just affords intended parents that extra level of protection, in my opinion.
One thing that you kind of repeatedly hear is that intended parents aren't fully realizing how many systems they are actually navigating all at once. It's legal, it's medical, financial. I mean, of course, the emotional aspect during all of this. What are some of the biggest things that you feel like intended parents need to understand earlier in the process?
I think for me, one of the things that intended parents need to understand early in the process that is not a linear project. It's not step one, two, three, four. And we've been taught our entire lives to learn how to ride the wave, but also in between waves, nobody really tells us what to do. And there's a lot of in between waves. We're not doing anything. It's doing the active things that you can do. And also to me, I think the most important thing is empower yourself to ask the right questions, because if you have a doctor or an agency or anybody that just feels intimidated or threatened or gets activated by the questions that you ask, then there's a red flag right there.
Yeah, I think when I'm talking to people, one of the things I say is, you are the master of your own destiny. And what do I mean by that? I mean the fact that you can delegate this out to everybody in the stakeholders in this ecosystem. You can say to the agency, do everything for me. You can say to the clinic, do everything for me. But you have to know what's going on. You have to take control of understanding where things are. It's your family. You need to understand. And from the outset, it's almost like somebody needs to draw a decision tree for you and say, right, this is how the process is going to go. This is what could happen. You're in the middle of your universe and you have your agency and your donor and then the lawyers and the escrow. Like all these different people are going to communicate, but you're in the middle. And if you're not getting answers to your questions, that's a problem. And if you're in that situation, just keep asking and asking and asking. Because one of the worst things that any intended parent, I think, can hear is, we'll tell you when you need to know. I'm like, no. Tell me up front. Tell me the whole thing so that I can make decisions, because you don't know if you go this way, well, you've closed that door. You don't know that. And so the professionals in this industry should be the ones saying, okay, this is what's going to be happening next. And by doing this is, you can go this way or this way. If you go this, these are the downstream implications. If you do this, these are the downstream implications. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of people just think, oh, I'm going to work with somebody, they're going to do it all for me.
And there's a lot of direct messages that we get, a lot questions, people and emails, people asking. It's like, well, my doctor gives me a good feeling, but this has happened and has not been successful. And but as the doctor, you should know. It's always good to get a second opinion, I believe, to understand why, if something doesn't work, or is it, are you receiving the information that is easy for the doctor to do, or are you receiving the information that is suited for your best part of your age, your journey, your livelihood?
Sure.
I do think it's really interesting because this can be painted in a very negative light, but I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think what's happening is you've got people who are running at 1,000 miles an hour. They want to help you. They want to get stuff done. They believe that the intended parents have a level of understanding and knowledge that maybe they don't have. And so when you're having conversations as an intended parent with a doctor and they start going into all of the terminology, I remember sitting there going, God, I've got a degree, I've got a master's, I work in finance, I've got a brain, and I have no idea what he's saying.
Right, you're glazed over like Julio gets. And then,
like, and you know, he walks out, he walked out thinking, great, I've explained everything. And that wasn't his fault. That was my fault for not saying,
for not being an embryologist.
For not being an embryologist.
I'm sure.
Right? But again, so a lot of, and it's really interesting when I'm talking to people who, and predominantly it's heterosexual couples who've had failed miscarriages, they've had failed pregnancies and miscarriages and failed transfers. And I take them right the way back to the beginning. And I say, you know, this is what's happening. You've got an egg and you've got sperm and they grow. And then the majority of miscarriages happen because there's a chromosome abnormality. And they go, what does that even mean? I'm like, the wrong number of chromosomes. And the body is very good at figuring out this is not going to be a good baby. And you have a miscarriage. And you just see people going, was that why I had miscarriages at 6, 7, 8 weeks? I'm like, yeah, because the embryos weren't tested, right? When you're getting pregnant naturally, you're not testing embryos. You're just getting pregnant, right? Or you've done IVF and they didn't test them because they're like, oh, you're going to be fine. Or it could be something else. And you just see people, it's almost like, I've been doing this for 3 years and nobody's ever told me that. And again, I don't think that's the fault of the doctor or the nurse or whomever they're working with. It's just they're busy and they're running through what they're doing. They're not necessarily being able to just sit back and go, okay, let's go through from the start to the beginning to where you're at to where you got to go to.
And it's also, for me, like something that we have to understand that at the end of the day, this is ultimately a luxury item that you're buying. You're not curing cancer. So it's like the juxtaposition of medicine that is always intended to heal. So if somebody comes sick, you don't promote people to get sick to come to you. And so the education of catering to the buyer, the intended parent, doesn't have the right approach or technique, as in facilitating every information of the journey of the product. So when you're having a baby, it's not the same at any other doctor part of the medicine industry, right? So and it's easy to think for us as men, gay men, we come to IVF or fertility clinic with the hope of, yay, we want to get a baby. We don't come broken. We don't come with miscarriages. We don't come knowing that we're infertile.
Yeah, it's a very different starting point.
That's interesting that you use the phrase luxury item, quote, quote, because in the US in particular, right, like when it comes to any sort of IVF, one of the things that is just all over is trying to make it where it can be more affordable, particularly through insurance and things like that. And one of the major standpoints is anybody who wants to have a baby should be able to have a baby. And it's not a luxury item. It's just how you get there is looking different. And so I think it is interesting. I think still, to your point, Julio, I think, yes, the doctors are probably, you're right, looking at it in a different way versus a cancer patient or, you know, things like that. But at the end of the day, yeah, you do need to explain what's happening, and the patient isn't always going to know what questions to ask. And that's on the medical professionals to provide that information.
It's so funny. He always says, I have catchphrases that come up every time. And one of them is, you don't know what you don't know.
Oh my God, if I get a
Yeah.
coin every time he says that.
But it's true, right? I go into
Yeah.
a doctor and I don't know what I don't know. I'm expecting them to tell me. And if they don't, I don't know what they've not said. And this is,
Right.
I think it's really interesting. Sometimes when, at the clinic in California, and there'll be a representative of the surrogacy agency there, for example, we're chatting away and we're doing stuff. And then, a surrogate will come out or an egg donor will come out and they've just done their screening. And they always go, oh, cool. How was it? Did they do the blood draw? Did they do this? Did they do that? And you, generally 9 times out of 10, they've done it all. It's great. Sometimes they will have missed one thing that was on a list of 10. And that representative is like, okay, well, we need to make sure that that's done. Again, they don't know, the surrogate doesn't know, or the egg donor doesn't know what's being done. And they would have had to come back to do another test. And I think that is really important when you're working with people to know that they understand what they're doing, that you can trust them to look after you. So you're not wasting time, effort, money, whatever it is, right? I think that is really valuable. And I think to your point of trying to make this affordable for everybody, one of the things the United States is doing, which is amazing, two things. One is fertility benefits. So companies are now putting in place fertility benefits for everybody to have a family. And two, it's the insurance mandates that are coming out. Now they're complicated and they are, I wouldn't say they're perfect, but they're getting to a point where it hopefully over the next year, it'll be ironed out. And to your point, insurance are told you have to provide IVF coverage. I think that's great because we don't have that. We don't have that here in England, for example. We don't have fertility benefits. We've got the NHS, which is socialized medicine, but it's not available to everybody. You have to go through hoops to get in there. I was talking to somebody today who's a carrier for BRCA2, and they have to be under 40 to be tested in different things, and they're 41. They're like, that immediately rules me out. Like,
Yeah, that's the other part. The people that, like, to me, it's almost like it hurts. I'm happy that I get to get people to trust us to ask us those messages, but it's kind of painful when women send us direct messages saying I've done this, and the way through the help of funding of the government or and I don't know what happened, but my doctor wants to do, like, the latest that I got, they want to do implantation at day 3. It's just like, and then she doesn't have the luxury to go for a second opinion, So I think her clock is ticking, and then she don't know how to talk to the doctor to,
Yeah. Well, and again, to your point, that's, I think, what makes it so important to find those industry professionals, whether it's, a trusted agency, obviously your doctor, your attorney, everybody who is transparent and will give you the universe, give you the web, but then give you the ability to take it off in bite-sized pieces if that's what you need. But still, you at least are seeing the whole universe. This episode of Create a Happy Family is brought to you by Chiles and Warren Law Group. If you're building your family through surrogacy, egg donation, sperm donation, or embryo donation, you already know how important it is to have the right team guiding you through every step of the process, especially when it comes to the legal side of family building. Chiles and Warren Law Group is a law practice dedicated exclusively to assisted reproductive technology law. They've helped thousands of intended parents, surrogates, and donors navigate this process with compassion, clarity, and experience. Whether you're entering a surrogacy agreement, reviewing a donor agreement, or finalizing parentage in Texas, their team understands both the legal complexities and the very human side of these journeys. To learn more or schedule a consultation, visit chileswarrenlawgroup.com. And if you reach out, be sure to let them know you heard about them on Create a Happy Family. I think one of the things that you guys do a really good job of is balancing the honesty, but without becoming so fear-based, while also creating this really strong sense of community for people that are navigating this process. Why do you feel like that is so important to build that kind of space, especially online.
I love your questions.
I know.
Oh, thanks.
Yay.
Well,
I'll let you answer this one first.
For me, the thing is, like, we're in a social media platform, right? We
Right.
For me is a way that if I have been with Richard for 3 years, we have 100 episodes in English and 20 in Spanish, and I still don't really fully get it. Like, I don't even. Yeah, I don't even want to know what is somebody that is just broken or somebody that is fighting really hard to get to embryos. And then I just got a message of today of somebody that is a second surrogate that just falls through the cracks, and they're going through, like, as the last option to get a family member that offered to carry. And then it's just like those moments like that. I'm just like, we need to break the stigma of, like, the marketing sales pitch, like success rates. Like, a clinic can say 100% success rate, but they don't know that they implanted two and only one egg took, and they consider success rate a baby. So, or the fact that nothing happening is part of the process. Or also being honest and saying, you know what, like, you're going to be the least qualified person who's going to be in charge of your coordination of the project, because nobody talks to anybody. It's like when you're building, the reason I call it a luxury project is because when you have a house, you have an interior designer, right? That deals with, like, the carpets and the colors, and they gather everything, hand it to you.
And a general contractor.
And a general contractor. In this project, you become the interior designer of your project.
Yeah. And I think for me, community is so important. And the reason it's important is because growing up gay, you find your community and you find the marginalized and you find the outliers. And so, and that becomes your chosen family, right? And one of the things that I love to do is I've got multiple different WhatsApp groups of people in Belgium, in Holland, in Italy, where I'm talking to them. I talk to anybody about, I mean, literally, I was in the queue at the airport the other day. And, I mean, you can't make this up. So I'm standing there. There's somebody behind me. And then behind them, there's this guy in a baseball cap, glasses, and a child. And I'm just like, whatever, not paying attention. And he goes, Richard. And I'm like, and takes off his glasses. And it's somebody, you'd know who it is if you saw him, but somebody we all know. And I'm like, oh my God, I helped him have his kid, right? And so we're chatting. So the guy in between, the middle, goes, why don't you just go in front of me and chat and then check in?
Just stop talking.
And it was just like really annoying and just like trying to pretend not. Anyway, so we did that. And then, so he checked in first. I let him go first because I'm nice. And then it was my turn. So he disappeared up to the lounge. And the guy behind me was like, what was that all about? I was like, well, I work in IVF and we help people go through surrogacy. And the guy literally was like, I want to have a family. I'm like, well, come and join us. I've just got an invite to the lounge. So come and join us and we sat and we chatted. And that to me is community. And I do that a lot because when you are starting this process, you are reliant on other people. And if those other people don't have a vested interest, they are just people that are going through the process and they're one step ahead of you, they can help guide you as well. And my only ask to everybody, like, it's so sweet. People are like, can I do this for you? Can I do that for you? I'm like, no, the only thing I want you to do is to help the people behind you. I would love you to become a trusted advisor to them. And that community in our industry is it's amazing. And I love it. I absolutely love seeing groups of people getting together, having families. And now some of those WhatsApp groups, obviously they've got 5-6-year-olds and it's just, it morphs into what schools are you going to? How are we doing this? Like the one in Belgium is currently, they're fighting the government to be recognized as parents. So they're all now talking about that, right? It's just amazing. These are people that would never have met before. And yet all of a sudden now, I wouldn't say they're necessarily friends, but they know each other. They're part of a group. They're part of a community.
And also it's we have to admit that this is a brutal journey. The process is brutal and people show up so vulnerable because you don't know where you stand. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I usually like to joke about it to make light of it that just people are trauma bonded in this industry. So
Sure.
so you feel alone, you don't want to tell anybody, but you are stuck, and then you want people to, and then you realize that a problem carried with more than one people is a less heavy problem. And that to me, also like in my position, I'm a gay stepfather. Like I don't have any reference.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get yes. This is one of the things that I am so passionate about is people being willing to share their story. So you can have the random person in line at the airport, say, wait, I want to build a family. And now all of a sudden they have been brought into the conversation. Or, Julio, you are the gay stepfather that now every other gay stepfather is trying to look to and be like, okay, wait, so what's the footprint for this? Like, it's a big deal. And that is why it is so important to share your story. And like you said, Richard, help the other person behind you in some way, shape, or form that feels comfortable. Going back to, again, particularly the LGBTQ community, what are maybe some of the questions that you wish that will help with the you don't know what you don't know? What should you be asking those agencies, lawyers, clinics?
I think it starts with, what is your family dream? Because a lot of people, before you even start talking to the agency, the lawyers, the clinics, it's like, do you want one child? Do you want two child? Do you want twins? It's like, what is in your mind? How does your family look?
Mm-hmm.
Because once you've got that, you can then say, okay, so you want one child. Well, whose sperm? You want two children, same sperm, different sperm, same egg donor, different egg donor. And especially, for example, I have a lot of interracial couples, and they're like, well, how do we choose an egg donor that represents us both? Right? Mm-hmm. These are conversations that they have to have. I think it's the communication between couples has to be really clear about what their desire is, because we will get you there. But unless we know what you want, it's really difficult to kind of get there. Now, in our conversations, again, we're asking the questions of, what are your plans? Do you want one child now, one in the future? How do you want to do this? And we can help navigate them through it. But generally, I think the biggest question and for people to think through is like, what is your family goal?
Because you cannot put somebody in a Ferrari with no destination.
Well, you can't. You just sit there.
No, but imagine get in your fast car and put in your swimsuit, your ski gear. You're like, we need to know where you want to go, so we make sure that we take you there.
But I do that. He always complains because whenever we travel, I
never complain. What are you talking about?
I always take a swimsuit, flip flops, goggles. I'm like, just in case I swim. And he's like,
we're going to a 2-day conference, and he brings a book, swimsuit. I'm like,
what are you intending to do? I'm like, I end up working the entire time. It's like, there may be a pool.
So when you're a teenager and you pack everything that you have in your room because it's nice and it looks good, but it's not.
I love that you said when you're a teenager, as if we don't still do this, but that's fine. Keep going. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm still a teenager. I'll go with that. Still a teenager. No. Yeah. My teenagers don't even know where the wardrobe is, let alone pack anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some people show up with the suitcase half empty, and some people show up with a giant ambitious goal that it's like, or some, like we have heard people saying like, okay, I want to find the surrogate now and then the egg donor all at the same day.
Yeah, they want to move quick. Again, I think one of the, I always say to people, if you want to rush this process, you're going to get stopped. It's not like just don't rush it. Take things as they come. They're like, but I want my donor tomorrow. I'm like, great. I guarantee you're going to find a donor and then something's going to happen and it's going to cancel and you have to try a new one.
I was going to say, yeah, you could rush it. It's just everything's going to take way longer ultimately because
your surrogate is not going to wait a year for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You find your surrogate now, but you don't have embryos. You're going to sit and wait and pay her, or how's this going to work? Like, she doesn't want to sit around and wait. These are amazing women that want to help people and they just sitting at home doing nothing. Like I think it's back to your original question of what can people think through, is I would really try and talk to people without any form of judgment of how the process could go, talk to many different people, see how they explain, because this is process management at the end of the day. It's got human beings thrown in. It's the human beings that give the ups and the lows, right? So if you literally can get to understand the process from A to Z or A to Z, you can literally go, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. But if you don't know that process, then you're a bit tied. And I think that's what I say to everybody, is like, just come and talk to me or buy my book. It's that one there.
There you go. There you go. Yes.
Or buy, that's got steps in the process, or listen to the podcast. It's free.
And to my part of it is just to bring the human side of it, and without getting to be adversarial, because when you're in social media, it's really easy to fall for like the clickbait. So we have to maintain a little bit of lightweight and sense of humor, than saying like a lot of people are going to say yes and take your money and then realize that they cannot fulfill your dreams because they didn't allow you to ask where do you want to go. So you need to be careful with that.
So I'm chuckling on the inside. Did you say you didn't want to be adversarial? Okay, so cute.
Noted. I'll give you this clip.
Antagonistic,
but not adversarial. I mean, I love this. I want this to work. Are you kidding me? We have a family because IVF and surrogacy, but surrogacy is an unregulated industry. It's like medicine and supplements or peptides. It's like they're not regulated, so anybody can have the hat of an agency. So you need to know where are the right people. The fortune is that I've always said, we can pick and choose, because this is not a Sephora of surrogacy. There's like a handful of people, and we can tell you which one do we constantly work with, that we trust and we know, and we can just get along like a very tight ship.
It's like, who does a good job?
Yeah. Well, again, and I think that this is something, again, that I love about y'all's platform, is the goal is to take down the noise that is so easy to, if you just Google, I need a surrogate, I need an egg donor. I mean, it can get overwhelming. Talk about, and then you get into the Facebook groups or the DMs, and then it just gets, it's wild, wild west. Like it gets crazy. And so it is important to have those trusted voices in the industry that either have experience or can at least help guide you as you're trying to decide who are the people that you do want to work with. And again, I love that you guys are so passionate about how important it is to be transparent, to be ethical. And yes, we know you want your egg donor or your surrogate yesterday, but that's not going to necessarily result in the best experience.
Right. But be honest about it. So when you've got an intended parent talking to you, be honest. Say, the waiting time is this, but this is why. Or you want to do this yesterday. I get that. Now, because that's the thing. People get to us and they start talking to us. They're like, I can do this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train coming towards me. There is a light at the end of my tunnel, and I want a baby, and I want it now. This has been my dream for years and years, and now I can do it. But sometimes it's like, okay, yes, trust in the process if you've got the good people around you. Yeah. It's just finding those good people. Sometimes, to your point, you go online and then all of a sudden you're going down this path, and that's not necessarily.
Or some people get stuck on paying some VIP training or VIP prices just to make sure that they speed up the process. Or a lot of now that you cannot put two embryos in one surrogate, not as it used to be when the kids were born.
A double embryo transfer, it's not the general standard anymore. Yeah,
and then you see a lot of couples that want to have twins, and then they found a surrogate, and the other one is not working as well as the other one, and they just completely forget about the surrogate that is pregnant, and then they just go into anything emergency just to make sure. They get so focused on make sure that they're twins that anybody will take their money on like that vulnerability part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're so right. And again, that's why it is just so important to be picky and ask the questions. And I think you said it earlier, Julio, the minute that somebody, starts either not answering your questions or saying you don't need to ask that, or, whatever, like red flag, just red
Yeah.
flag.
But also, you're going to talk to many different people before you even
Yeah.
start. And
Mm-hmm.
if you've spoken to 5 people and they've all recommended one person, that's a good sign. And when you're talking to other people, what do you think about these people? What do you think about those people? How did they work? Have you worked with them before? Are they good? How long have they been around? Do they have a huge turnover of staff? Like, do they provide support? Like, those are really basic questions that sometimes get overlooked in the you just want to get going.
And what I love the most about what Richard does, Richard makes sure is to get like a small gathering if people are open to it, where he always brings a good couple with their kids, and it's just like a fresh pair of eyes that will look at you and say like, I know where you've been. I
Yeah.
just got out of that same spot that you're in like a year ago, and then they just immediately. It's almost like, here, don't believe what I say. This is other people that you can take their words for. And that to me is
Yeah.
like, frankly, the best thing anybody can
Yeah.
do when you have nothing to hide.
But that comes back to that community thing that you were talking about. For
Community.
example,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks' time, I'm organizing a dinner in San Francisco. I'm not even there. But
I love it.
I've got 12 people going for dinner. I've got one couple that I know that live in San Francisco. There was somebody else that messaged me. I put them in touch, and then somebody else messaged. I'm like, why don't you guys go for dinner? And it's now become 12 people going for dinner. And I love that, because why not?
Yeah.
Love
Well,
it.
again, it is that community aspect of this is so important, and it shows just the beauty of this industry, because it can be so easy to get bogged down in the what's not working and red flags and be weary of this, but majority of the time it's actually pretty great, and the people that are part of this like just want the best. They really do.
Yeah.
They really do. And I think that's what I love about the family building industry, is when you talk to 99.9% of the people,
Mm-hmm.
they don't care if you're going to work with them as a professional. They want you to walk away from that call with information that helps you move forward. And I see this over and over. And I say to everyone, it's like, you can work with us, you can work with them, you can work with anybody. Just work with the people that make you feel good and that have explained the process. And always come back, ask me questions. I'm not going to say, oh, you chose them over. Like, ask us questions. That's why we're here.
The industry really, it has come so far. There's still more that, can always be improved, and things can be so different, particularly, I know we've already kind of made references to Belgium with surrogacy being illegal, but then there's also kind of the added layer of LGBTQ plus. We're having our own issues in various states in the US, just things like that. What do you hope changes for LGBTQ families over the next decade in the fertility and egg donor surrogacy space?
It depends where we're looking at, right? In the United States, I would like for there to be equality in the insurance mandate. I think LGBTQ families deserve the same rights as those that have got the insurance mandate. I think that's being addressed, which is great. I would love, again, I'm going to get political. But I think we're seeing a rollback of rights, be it LGBTQ, be it women, be it your race, be it your nationality, where you've come from. Like, there is a rollback of rights, and I don't like that. I think that's not fair, and that's a worldwide phenomenon. And I think we've come a really, really long way. And I think we can always improve, and I'm always looking to benchmark up, and I'm always looking to, best practice. But I feel at the moment we're moving backwards. And I think what I really don't like is the fact that supporting surrogacy in countries where it's illegal is a vote loser for the politicians. And therefore, they don't even want to talk about it. And it's
Oh,
not on the
wow.
docket. Yeah. And it's, I think that's not, I don't think that's cool. I can't think of a better way to put it, but I don't think that's cool. I think that it's not fair because you have a small amount of trans families that they get no voice because the heterosexual families drown it out. I don't care on a numbers basis. I care on the fact that you have a human being who has a desire and they are not being allowed to do that because the politicians won't even look at it because it's a vote loser. That to me, I think is wrong. And I would love for that to change. I would also love for religion to be removed from politics so that in countries like Italy, you don't get fined up to €1 million to have if you have a baby through surrogacy. You don't get threatened with going to jail because you've had a baby through surrogacy. Why do we think that is? Is it because it's a morally right thing to do, or is it because you've got people in religion saying that this is wrong? Like, I'm being political. I don't normally get political. I know he's like, ooh, but
who is this person?
I know, but I feel that we've got to a tipping point, and it's not a tipping point in a good way. I think that we're going in the wrong direction.
And I think it's also a tipping point that if you don't get political, then your silence is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really appreciate you because I don't think it's political. I think it's human. I think it's human rights and just period across the board. You said you were fined €1 million in Italy if you're choosing to have your family through surrogacy. Just some of those things you can be. And I do remember it was a couple of years ago when it was the then Pope saying that surrogacy was an abomination and, things like that. And there was all kinds of chatter about it over in the US because it is legal, not in all 50 states, but it is legal. And so there was just there was just a lot of talk about it. And I remember being just so upset by the whole thing. And then it was somebody who said to me, well, but you have to think about the context that he's saying this in. There are countries where things are being done that aren't ethical. So it's such a multi-layered process. And I guess my long-winded question to that is, can you kind of speak into a little bit of what you particularly are kind of guiding intended parents through that are in Europe and just other countries besides the US that are navigating this?
Absolutely. I think the first thing we do is talk to a local lawyer. How are you going to get home? How are you going to be recognized as a parent? Right.
Yeah.
And because don't just walk into this thinking it's all going to be fine. It could not be. A friend of mine from Australia had a baby in Argentina, and halfway through the process, the rules changed, the laws changed. He got caught out because his agency didn't do something properly. He spent 15 months in Argentina trying to get home. He's finally got home, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you for saying this because you brought up this story in one of your podcasts and I think it was still happening. And I'm so glad to know that he is finally
got home last month. Finally got home last month. But again, it's because at the time, every time before this surrogate did a transfer, she had to sign a document saying she was okay with the surrogacy process. It wasn't her embryo, blah, blah, blah. First transfer didn't work. She went in for the second transfer. The first time they signed the documents, the second time they didn't. And the law is the law. The lawyers were like, there's nothing we can do. And so, again, coming back to why the US is the gold standard, right? Things like that should never happen. But why does it happen? Well, because it's being driven underground in certain countries, because the law is out. So, imagine this. You're in Italy, and all of a sudden they change the law and they say you can do surrogacy, but here are the rules, and these are the hoops you have to go through in order to do it. What's wrong with that? Right? Like they did in New York. The New York State put in place rules and regulations to do it. Like, why drive things underground when it's happening? Just make it legal. You're not hurting anyone, in the United States at least. I mean, in other countries there are absolutely ethical concerns, but that's only happening because they're being driven there because of like unethical, like it just, the rules are so like bad in certain countries that they just think I need to do this somewhere else. And and it's just here in Europe, when I'm talking to people, the first thing I do is I say, talk to a local lawyer, because how are you going to get home? On what passport are you going to get home? And are you going to be recognized as the parents of that child, which is your child? Then I talk about, if they're talking about different jurisdictions, I'm like, okay, well, you can go to certain countries where you don't even ever meet your surrogate. Is that something you really want? Do you want a relationship with your surrogate? Do you want to know who she is? Do you want to know that she's being cared for and looked after, that she's legally protected, that she's medically empowered? Do you want that to happen, or do you want her just to be someone living in a commune with other surrogates, like used to happen in India, for example, or, it wasn't everywhere, but it definitely happened. I think it's so...
But it comes back to the same part of the more that you make something illegal or not regulated or not legal, the more people are going to find ways to do it. It's almost like it feeds off of each other. So if it's not legal, if it's not properly regulated, it's still going to happen, but in the less appropriate conditions.
No, you're so right. And it makes room for people to take advantage, and then for there to be the continued, well, but this is unethical. Well, this is unethical because, and it just becomes this constant loop. We've kind of already touched on it a little bit because, I mean, this is an incredibly expensive process, period. Now throw in the fact that you are in a different country, maybe navigating this. Do you feel as though that is one of the reasons why you do have intended parents? I mean, we see it in the US. Oh, well, I can't afford a US surrogate, so I'm going to go to a different country. Well, now you have the same issues that you've already touched on.
And also, I because I'm from Venezuela, so my first language is Spanish. I get a lot of people that I don't have a visa to go to the US. It's not like I'm trading security for cost. It's like I cannot even get to the US. So where can I do this?
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people are now looking at other jurisdictions. I mean, it's does it fall under medical tourism? Does it? Because that was a big thing in Thailand for a bit. There was a booming business, and then it stopped after a while because of baby gammy. But the government is now looking at bringing it back because there's finances there. There's money coming into the country. There's a whole industry that is creating GDP, right? It's again, it comes, and it's a real struggle because I'm a big proponent of do the best you can always, right? If you can afford it, do it and get the best protection that you can. But I see it, and I see it. More and more people are going to other countries and putting themselves in potential risk because they're like, well, it's not going to happen. Statistically, I've been told that it's not going to happen. But what they don't realize is for people in the industry, it's a statistic. For them, it's binary. It either happens or it doesn't. And if you get stuck for one reason or another, that's when you have a problem.
I just finally got it. Last podcast, you talked about statistic and binary, and I did not get what you were saying.
You glazed over. I know. Binary means it's either going 1 or 0. It's either
no. I know what binary is, but I now I understand. For me as an intended parent, will be it will happen or not. I don't care if it's a 10% or 1%. I just care if it happens or if it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Whereas when we're looking at 500 people going through surrogacy and I don't know, say 500 people going through surrogacy, 10 of them have a miscarriage. I'm like, okay, there's a very low statistic that you're going to have a miscarriage. But if you're one of
Not for
those
those
10,
10.
that it happened to you. It's 100%. It happened to you.
That's the thing about, like, when you talk to insiders and they throw information like that, it's like, okay, you just walking into this office feeling like I'm buying a lottery ticket, and I don't want to buy a lottery ticket.
Right. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we can all agree it is a lottery ticket, but you can at least try and buy the lottery ticket with as much knowledge as possible and at least as much guidance as possible. So if there are hiccups, there's at least a solution, or we know the route to take, versus the situation with your friend in Australia or was not in Australia, Argentina, and all of a sudden he's stuck and can't get home.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a measure of anybody in this industry is not how do you do things when they go right. It's how do you do things when they're not going the way they should be? And how are you going to support me through that? Either from a process perspective, from an emotional perspective, from a financial perspective, like what support are you going to give me? Because again, the people that get pregnant first go have an uncomplicated pregnancy, baby. Wonderful.
Great.
That's great. But what about the people who have 3 failed transfers, then a miscarriage, then they have to make new embryos, then they have to find second surrogate and then a third surrogate? Like, how does that work?
And how transparent are you on those journeys? That it's like earning trust. If I see websites or agencies that talk about if there's a surrogate that got diabetes, or there's a surrogate that got those are the things that I'm like, this is honesty, and I love people that are disclosing things, are not just all marketing.
Having real conversations.
Yeah. Because I mean, but you're so right. It's so easy and it's fun to celebrate you got pregnant on the first time, or you and your surrogate are best friends, or now all of a sudden you're doing TikTok dances with your egg donor, and just all of the things. It is so fun to celebrate that. But I love that. I love what you said of how are you going to support me when things aren't going well? Yeah. That's a great question to ask. Just nugget right there. If someone is feeling intimidated, overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted by just this whole process right now, what would you want them to know?
It gets worse when you have kids.
This is the best part of the process.
By the way, the kids are home. Just FYI.
I've got 2 big phrases. A great friend of mine who I haven't seen for a long time was like, go get a cup of tea. It's going to be fine. And then my granny used to say, this too shall pass. Like, if you're struggling and you think it's not going to happen, but you've got a great team around you, they will support you through it. They will, to my point just now, support you. They will be there. They will help you. Sometimes you just have to trust the process. It may not be the family of your dreams, but it's going to be a family. And it may not be the way that you thought it was going to happen, but it is going to happen. And you've got to grieve for that family that you thought you were going to have. And then you have to embrace the family that you are going to have.
Yeah. Oh, you're so right. I think there can be such a struggle when you're in the midst of a journey, but you're still thinking about the what could have been. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people, and one of my best friends, she froze her eggs really early on, like 10-15 years ago. Then she just recently wanted to have a family, and she tried with all of her eggs and none of them worked. And then is a huge grief process of getting an egg donor and thinking that you've heard that being a surrogate that doesn't affect the genetics, so then I'm carrying a baby that is not genetically mine. until that baby touches your arms and your hands, and it's like all that vanishes. But when it's real, it's as real as it can get. But
Yeah.
it's a matter of the support and understanding that the fixation sometimes can just get us lost in the forest. I always say, like, sometimes we get caught up looking at the rose and we forget the garden that we're creating. So, but the minute that she had the baby, it's just like all of that just went away.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love go get a cup of tea. That could not be more just
English.
UK and beautiful. Yes. But no, again, to your point, I think I always use the phrase, this is a moment. This isn't forever. And if you can, yes, remember the garden, look at things. It really, it can feel like it is totally taking over your life. But it is just that moment. And like you said, it's so important when you have that support. What does IVF Daddies represent to you now beyond just the podcast and your platform?
Well, I think community. Like, I keep coming back to it because I genuinely believe, and it's really odd. So I've always hated my voice. I don't like my voice. It's just one of those things. And it's really interesting when he's playing back the podcast and he's editing it and it's like, hello. And I'm like, oh my God. But I hate it. But we can be out at, we were in Hong Kong and I'd organize a drinks thing. And this guy, I was talking and this guy comes and goes, I know you. I know your voice. And I was like,
I love it.
I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I literally.
And did you go, hello?
Hello, I'm Richard and this is Julia. And it took me a while. Then he's like, oh my God, you have a podcast. I'm like, yes.
And like, to me, as community is really important, and visibility, but clarity, most of it, because is very satisfying when Richard is talking to somebody traveling and just getting to know people that are looking to get into the process, and they're like asking that one question that just happened to be in the last episode, and then it's just like, we just, you know what, go to this podcast and we just talk about that one question that you're asking. And that sense of clarity from both perspectives, from his perspective and from my, like, I always try to play like if I show up being the intended parent that wants to get the information in. And so I always try to collapse the system, ask the same question in different angles to see if I'm going to get the right answer, So that is that to me, that clarity is important, and also is such a long and segregated and fragmented journey that is, I'm just like trying to like put it together like a Lego, and it's just the pieces don't fully attach, and I don't know, it's just now I'm obsessed with it.
I love it. Well, again, thank you guys so much for your time, and really just thank you for everything you're doing, bringing a voice to this, just across the globe. I could not be just more thrilled by it. I have one last question for you guys, and it's a fun one. So for anyone who knows me, I know, Richard, you love tea. I, however, am the classic coffee addict, and you will never find me without coffee in hand. And so I always love to ask the question, what has filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what has been the thing that has filled your cup?
Well, for me today was we happened to just go out and meet a friend of Richard's that they knew each other for taking the kids to the first school, and having them to the same way that you meet people in the journey, like being stuck or going through something traumatic. Like, both are teenagers, and they're like, I saw their eyes and they were like, oh my God, they're trauma bonding right now. So that was so like today, that was like, that filled my cup today.
Mine's slightly different. So every Thursday we do couples therapy, the two of us. Because for those of you who don't know, I was married for a long time. and we got divorced. And when I met Julio, we had a conversation, and I was like, I don't want to build a new house with old bricks. And in therapy today, we were discussing a few things, and it was great. And I think what's filled my cup today is the fact that go back 10 years and I would never have considered ever going to therapy. And it really has had such an amazing impact. And what I think was it's for me has been the most impactful is there's a connotation that you go to therapy because things are wrong and you want to break up and you don't know how to, and it's just all the negatives around trying to save a relationship. And actually, we're at the best place we've ever been. And it reinforces, and it's just another way to get through some of the things. And that every Thursday I have a great day.
Yeah, like a side note, our therapist was like, and the two of you are still in the same page? You have not argued? She was shocked.
She's great.
She was shocked.
She's great. And
especially as Julio's trying to cause chaos all the time.
Oh my God, I love causing chaos because it's just you fall asleep. Like you go like this. I got like dopamine rush, like cortisol level to just like spike you up. But yeah, I've always done therapy because therapy to me is like, it's the same thing as talking to people and asking questions. Is they give you the vocabulary of emotional language that you didn't have, and most of the issues are like, I just don't know how to voice it, and then I just go to blame.
Oh my gosh, you guys, thanks so much for asking. Literally what has filled my cup today this is probably coffee number 4. But we won't talk about that. I would say what has filled my cup today. So it's summer. And so I said this earlier, but the kids are out of school. But my husband's a teacher. And so he still works though. It's not the whole, oh, you're a teacher and you have 2 months off vacation. No, he still is over at the school. But life is just a little slower. And that just feels so nice.
I hear you.
The phone isn't buzzing as much. The emails have gone from like 10,000 to 1,000. Like it's just, it's just nice. It's a little slower. It's a different vibe, but it just feels slower.
Yeah.
It's a great vibe.
That is like the Instagram video that like women are like shampooing their hair and then just stop and like, you know what?
We're good.
Yes. No, you're so right. Yeah. Thanks for asking. But again, really, thank you guys so much for your time and for everything that you're doing. This is just so amazing. We're going to have it in the show notes, but if people want to find out more about IVF Daddies, where do they go?
IVF Daddies across the board. The website is ivfdaddies.com. You have there a section of Ask IVF Daddies where you can get all of the questions that you wish to have, and IVF Daddies on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify.
And it's a great Instagram to follow, I'm just saying, because again, it's not only is it incredibly informative, but it does have that lovely sprinkle of hilarity. So yeah, I do appreciate that.
Thank you.